I would like to invite Kim and our panelists to come up and tell us about where we go from here and how we close this circle.
I wanted to begin by thanking everyone for coming right through today to the closing panel, and not only because it's going to be a wonderful panel, but also I'm noticing that most of you are sitting with people that you had not met until, yeah, Cindy and Lynette, for example. Yeah, and I'd also like to extend a special welcome to my nephew, Griffin Samuel. And to Nora. We both love him, don't we? Anyway, okay, so this panel is really themed around what I call rounding the circle, not only closing a circle. And I might just explain it just in a brief moment, because it's a way of viewing something. I'm not introducing a new 4 Ps at this point. But I got this idea some years ago, maybe coming more through with the question is, why is it that we always leave our heroes on top of the mountain? And by that I meant that in any building of belonging, and certainly any system that we'd be talking about that would be guided by imagination, it's never one person or even maybe 3 people climb the mountain, however it goes. It's really the whole community, how we define community. And yet in the telling of stories such as ancient stories like the Grail Quest and stories that go along quite a bit like that in many cultural traditions, we see those, obviously. Where were the women knights of the Round Table? Obviously. But I want to take a piece of the story, which is that anyone going to seek the Grail had to go through 3 stages. And the first, I'm going to call it, that's the call to action. And the next is, I guess, kind of the slaying dragons and being a knight in the forest. And the third one is to me really simple, and I bet it is to all of you, and yet not to everybody, which is that you need to show some compassion. And I love fiction, and I love fable, and I love old stories, and not only because of the story, but also to think about what was the thinking at that time that came up with a story that was structured to leave our hero on the mountain. So in my book, I write about Parzival, and he's for me the favorite of the knights, because I think he's the most like us, and makes lots of mistakes and learns from them and goes on. And he was really lucky. He got 2 chances to receive the Grail. The first one totally blew it. The second one, he got it. Why? Because all you have to do is show compassion for the dying king and say, "Sire, what ails thee?" Well, how hard is that? I could look, our Elsie, I'm going to introduce you, Elsie. We both love, and this is an amazing, brilliant legal mind. We also love games and stories, and I think it's partly because we derive a lot out of them, yeah. And in a way that doesn't polarize anyone, like fairy tales. You can have everyone on the same stick in a way, and they all work. But it's this idea that to show compassion, that is the highest order. It sounds like the smallest task. Why is that? Because it takes so much work to get there, and to understand, and to learn, and to listen along the way. And I'm certainly not being as colossally presumptuous as it would take to say, and I would like to add a fourth part to the Grail Quest. But what I'd like us to do is to consider then the rounding of the circle. That could be the closing of the circle. The circle is to me, the rounding of it is it just keeps going round itself. And before I get into our amazing panel, I want to say that it's also very unfair to the designated hero to leave them on top of the mountain as well. Thank you for indulging me. Welcome back. For our closing panel today, we're going to really bring this forward to the action piece of this, and to at the same time imagine what a society could look like if the right to belong was upheld, this inherent right that we all have by simple virtue of the fact that we were born. We want to transform imagination into action and to look at how we can all affect change to build greater belonging, and to do that quoting Tony, who, well, if he's not, oh, good, yeah, okay, good. Quoting Tony from yesterday, it's not really about looking out for number one. It's about number two and doing things together. And I think that even that kind of thinking takes us off everything being linear, where it's pretty hard to build a sense of community and belonging on something that looks like a hill or a mountain like that. So I'm going to welcome each of our panelists, and to thank you for being here, and to say that there are a few questions for you, but that are coming. But I wanted to really say that's just in a guiding way. So I may go through the same question to begin for everybody, and take it where you want to go, because this panel is a combination of everything that you've experienced the past few days as well, and may well have eclipsed where we started from. So I'll begin with Elsie Tellier, because she's right beside me. And I got to meet Elsie when I was visiting a class that she was in the law school at Harvard. And then you've been here and completed your law degree, and now is an articling student at the Ontario Ministry of the Attorney General. And I think, are you getting close to the bar?
Yes, I'm taking the bar next month, so.
So, like, good wishes for that, right? That's big. And I wanted, actually, I'll just introduce you all and then come back. And then I want to go to Danya Pastuszek, co-CEO, Tamarack Institute for Community Engagement. And I feel like I've known you for much longer than 3 days, in a way, on the Zoom. But the Tamarack Institute, to me, is really a great model of belonging in practice, with a lot of circles getting rounded at the same time, working to end poverty, to activate just climate transitions, and foster communities where everybody experiences belonging. And I'm looking forward to a fireside chat at the end of next month to get to know more about Tamarack. We're so pleased that you came to our symposium. And then last but never least is Joey Monane, who's a good friend of mine. That's not why he's on the panel, but before I tell you why he's on the panel, thanks to Joey and the grannies and some of the granddads at Ikusasa Lethu in South Africa, I got to have the best birthday of my life a few years ago. It was the day, the day before, or the day after, sorry, that I got to have an interview, to get to interview Josina Michel, and we never got to the interview. And that was the sign that a great friendship was beginning, yeah. Anyway, it was my birthday when I was there, and it was really just kind of a site visit and meet with people, which was wonderful. And then I was surrounded by about 100 grannies, and giving me hugs and asking me if I'd been a good girl. And, and I was turning 58, and I thought, this is like the best moment. And then your cake and singing. But I want Joey, when you're talking, I can see in the notes that very much this is focused on empowering vulnerable children, absolutely. But you told me when I first saw you here in Toronto that that you're doing a lot of beautiful work, and everything that all of you are doing, like all of you is with, not for, with those wonderful grannies, and that they now have a home, not an institution, a home where they choose to be. And so just to say, I hope that the three of you have gotten to know each other a bit in these days, because you all have the same kind of spark. But I know it's about to come out on the panel. So what I'm going to do is to give this question and ask that each one of you answer it. And I guess we'll go this way. Does that sound good? Okay. We've been hearing from so many change makers over the last days about how they have been building belonging. So I want to hear from all of you a bit more about how you have raised awareness and built momentum around your issue areas. And I would add to that, with community. Mm-hmm. Okay, Elsie.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that depends on how we think about awareness. Because when I think about awareness, like there's the baseline of just making sure that other people know about, I don't like to say issues per se, but the kind of subject area or the things that your community is dealing with, like that's the baseline of awareness. Like, hey, there are these things going on. But for me, awareness is, to be cliche, but that's a part of it. It does involve belonging, and in this specific space, belonging here means purpose. That, to belong in a community is to have a purpose in that community. Mm-hmm. And so when I think about building true awareness, it's about giving a space for new people to feel like they have a purpose and a place within the community that I'm in. So from my perspective, working in disability rights, and specifically my experience, so I have cystic fibrosis, and cystic fibrosis often presents a complicated case because people with CF, cystic fibrosis CF, we can't meet in person. We can't be within 6 feet of each other because we can get each other sick. And so through that, we've had to create a lot of, interesting and creative ways to find each other and to speak about our issues, generally online. And then from that, we have to somehow still work together to bring other people into our issue and into our needs. And the way that we've been able to do that is mostly storytelling, right? So we come together and we find middle grounds, and we can say to each other, here's what's affecting me, and here's what I want to express to other people. Because in doing that, we can help people create compassion with us and not just for us. And then beyond that, not just within one specific type of disability. Disability is like an interesting case I've always found because, when we acknowledge disability, we're acknowledging this universality of a spectrum. There's so many different types of disability. Disability doesn't look the same in every single person. And so not only do we have to kind of ask non-disabled people to look at us and see us as individual people, but we also have to do that with each other. I have to be able to look at someone who's a wheelchair user or look at someone who's blind and say that I understand you and you can understand me. And so bottom line, how do I raise awareness? I meet people where they are and ask them to meet me where I am. And from there, we can learn about each other and try to build momentum to make other people see us the way we see each other.
Thanks, Elsie. I love that about meeting people where they are, because where they are, wherever someone is, that is their reality, what they're experiencing, and anything that we think we're projecting onto that, we're not. So, and thank you for sharing your story too. It's wonderful. It's wonderful to be here with you on a panel. Okay, Danya.
I just want to pick up where you left off, Elsie. I think when I think about raising awareness in my professional work, I'm both raising awareness with many other people around the power of place, the power of community, the potential of community, the essentialness of community, and around the individual mindsets and skills that we can each bring to this work of creating places where people belong, and beyond that, where people can really, really thrive. So when I think about creating awareness like you, I really start with self. I think understanding and having awareness of how I interact with the systems and the issues that are on the table is really important. How my identity as a wife, as a mother, as someone now in their early 40s, as someone who is white, these are all things that I like to be aware of because they influence how I show up to the work. And then I went really practical when I thought about the rest of this question. So I think building awareness is first, like you said, Elsie, really about understanding where people are entering into the conversation and where they're passionate about. So it's a lot about listening first. It's about asking questions like we've been doing here, really generative questions to push creativity and imagination. But also practical questions, like creating space for people to think about how they want to activate what they've learned and what they might do next. I think it's about telling stories. I know what's going to sit with me from your amazing book, from the conversations I've had here, will be some of the stories that people have shared, sitting out there, meeting over meals, up on the stage. So I think stories do so much to raise awareness. And then creating spaces and platforms like here for people to really benefit from the network effect that comes when we're all raising awareness around a particular issue or a particular opportunity.
Thank you. We're going to move to Joey, but just first I wanted to ask you just to add to your answer, when you're talking about raising awareness and your approach to things and building on what Elsie had to say, is that what Tamarack brought to you, or is that what you brought to Tamarack?
I think both. I think that I think of Tamarack as a movement. We're nearly 50,000 people across Canada and the world now that deeply believe in the power and the essentialness of community. And so I think these approaches of listening first, of understanding, and really celebrating the value of human connection are things that Tamarack has brought for a long time. And those of us in the movement deeply align with that as a value.
Thank you. Joey.
Hey, how you came again? I thank you for bringing me here. And you are, for me, a firestone. I don't know if you know a firestone, and Zen is here, can explain what's a firestone actually. A firestone is something that you look upon, somebody you look upon on. So actually navigating my way here, I'm happy that you call us here. You make us feel like we're very important. You make me feel like I'm also wanted. I'm valuable. I belong. I feel I belong now. I'm also from a vulnerable group, a corner where it was called Indigenous. I heard from this consortium to say there's people that are called Indigenous, and they feel like they're not well taken care of. And yesterday I heard from this one guy who was saying education, you can always go Google in the phone, and don't always forever complain about education, because you can always get it yourself. So for me, poverty, I've seen that poverty makes somebody to feel like it's nothing and it doesn't belong. And unemployment and resources, they make people to feel not belonging somewhere because they don't have resources. So in this fora, what I've learned a lot to say people actually, they don't have voices. And then I was saying to the last panel to say, can we check to Kim and them business people around the area if they don't have a voice to actually advocate for these people? Because for me, when I went to school, because I was hungry, I couldn't eat anything at home. When I'm left at home, it was poverty. I had to go to school because during lunch, I will eat from my friend. And that makes me to go to school. I was good in maths, mathematics, and science. So these people were actually buying me food to get information from me. So that's how I went to school. I couldn't stay at home. And that made me, I would say poverty for me, made me poverty. So some people, poverty keeps them at the corner, and they become so vulnerable because of poverty. They don't even want to navigate their way out from poverty. They'll complain to the government to say, government this, government that. And I'm not a politician, but I went to political school. My organization that I'm working for, it's a non-governmental organization. It's not government by any government. It's not governed by any government. It's just having its own policies. It's a standalone organization. It's non-racist. It's non-profit organization. It's non-political. And when I'm talking sometimes, I talk as a politician, and then people tend to say, this guy is a politician. And but we need our voices to be heard out there. And this kind of forum, we said in our last conversation out there to say we need people who are in power. I know you can call them in our forum, in our consortium, so that they then understand where we're coming from. Those indigenous groups, they shouldn't suffer. It's not time now. I don't think it's still. What I hear from what I heard from outside here, people are still suffering. I heard an old lady saying they are giving water in the water tanks here in Canada, here in Toronto. And when I wanted to come stay with you, I said, no, I'm not safe with Canada now. Mm-hmm. I was thinking, I've changed my mind. I'm no more staying in Canada. So I must go back home because much as you look at the news that South Africa, it's like a little bit vulnerable, it's not contained well, but a figure of speech, a figure of expression, and everything is there. So I think we most vulnerable when our mouth are shut up. So we need to open our eyes and voices and speak.
Mm. Thank you very much, Joey. I'm now going to invite each of you to answer a question just for you. I'll start with Danya, which is really about getting to one of the main themes of our gathering, which is the transformation question. Mm. Only that. How do you transform ideas into action? Mm. And feel free to draw on examples from Tamarack or from any of the people that you've had a chance to talk to over the last days.
Yeah. I think it really starts by knowing what your most audacious goal is. Knowledge and results and learning are really emergent, but I think that transforming ideas into transformational action requires some view for what could be ahead. So in Tamarack's case, much of the work that we do with community is about ending poverty, ending economic poverty, ending the racialized disparities and the disparities based on place that we see in poverty, not just in Canada, but in the US and around the world. So I think for me, getting to transformational action, and I think for others within the organization and partnerships that I work in, is very much about starting with that most audacious goal and holding belief that it can happen, and holding that belief not just because of some kind of unfounded optimism, but because we know we have examples from communities of change at a really broad scale happening. I think it's also about knowing more specifically what the goal in service of that goal will be. So I think about if I'm working with communities around ending working poverty at the community level, which I'm doing right now with 5 communities across Canada, holding that goal of ending working poverty in Trail, in Drumheller, in Saskatoon, in Chatham-Kent, in Winnipeg, we need to know that is our goal, because having that as the goal as opposed to having anything else be the goal really does guide the kind of action that you take. In my role within my organization, if I know that my goal in a given context is to create a place with 40 other people who are on the team that feels like a place where everyone can show up as their authentic self and bring their unique ideas and values and experiences to the work, that guides a different sort of thinking and path toward action than if it's a different goal. So again, I think it's really starting with what that goal is. I think that also creating spaces of supportive accountability is really important. So we've had lots of time here to absorb and talk about what we've learned, and then in our last session to talk about what we're going to do next. So I think that a lot of it is also about creating those spaces where we can determine for ourselves without prescription what it is with our unique gifts and our unique experiences we can contribute next, and being able to talk about those and build a system of support.
Thank you very much. Joey, I'm going to slightly change what I had in mind for you, which is really about how to, well, really to define scale and then tell us how do you scale programs from ideas, but because I know your organization, I feel quite well, I want to ask a little different question. And I want to let you know where I'd like to go with this, if it makes sense to you, which is to look at an organization like Ikusasa Lethu that takes care of so many kids and talk about intergenerational with the grannies and the granddads, the elders, and then looks to and does focus on the grannies even more and the grandfathers, and creating a home for people where they live, but even when I came on my special birthday day, it was clear that every day was a program of kind of like what you're saying, Elsie, like how do people get together? And it usually has to be around something that's taking place, and it can be what's happening every day. But I also know, and you've also shared with people here, that you and your team created a camp, a place for people who were experiencing homelessness, to give shelter, and that's how you met Sethu, and then many other things that you're doing. So my question is this, which is, how important is it, I should say, to have the core of what an organization is, and really like just about, I mean, everyone here and individuals too, that you're talking about something that's living. When we talk about systems, we're not talking about building more archaic bureaucracies. We already know it's about people, created for, by, with people. So what's the secret to doing that? How is it that maybe there's some alchemy between the community and the spirit and the outreach and the reciprocity that really makes it not only possible but more likely for other things to succeed because they're building from that center?
Yes, Kim. I don't know what happened, but this is God-given something. It's not like, I feel like what God brought to me, gave me, it's a blessing. I sometimes don't know what happened and where did it start, but it happens. We started an organization as a peer education program we're doing door-to-door campaigns, teaching people about HIV and AIDS and communicable diseases. Around that time, people were like scared of HIV, and then we wanted to bring hope to people to say HIV is just a thing that will just pass by, and people must take care of themselves. But people were told, no, this is a very, like Corona. Remember what Corona made us? We were so scared of all of us. So everyone, even with HIV, everyone was scared. And we went out there, and then it was myself and some of the youth around the community. And we then teach people to not to fear HIV and AIDS. But people then died, and they were leaving children unattended, and they were left with grannies. That's why I had a relationship with grannies. But now grannies have to take care of their own grandsons, and they were not also taught how to take care of HIV. They become infected, or even themselves. So now I then take care of the grannies to teach grannies. No, even yourself, grannies, you can do it. You can make it. Take care of your, because we always get, even myself. Now, grannies, then when these kids were left, then we had to have a program of orphans and vulnerable program, so that kids, when they come back from schools, the grannies cannot know the syllabus that the schools are giving. The new syllabus is for homework supervision and all those. So we had to teach my youth around to say, let's take care of these young girls and boys. Let's sit down and do homework supervision with them, then go to school, look at their academical processes and everything. And we join hands with the NSCCW, which it's Zeni, the organization of Zeni, and the synagogues. They then took our child and youth care workers as professional child and youth care workers. They were trained. These child and youth care workers are trained like social workers. They just know how to treat a child and make sure there's extra mural activities that are happening. We created a safe space for all the children. We are saying we are operating in the moment. We know the child. We know playing skills with the child. Those were trained. Were well trained by NSCCW. And we then brought in the gogos, the grannies that we find there. All of them, they must sit here, have a storytelling. They do storytelling for our kids. They are the history. Grannies are holding our history. So they must teach the children and youth how to make sure that they sit well, they don't just jump and have teenage pregnancies and all those. Now grannies are doing that. Even teaching boys, young boys, to say, hey, as a boy, this is how we must behave and everything. Our grannies during their time at the center. So we give each other space. So then we then had a home-based care project to take care of those grannies that are sleeping at bed, in bed at homes with chronic illnesses and stuff. So we do programs. They follow each other. They build up into each other. And we then, most recently, why we have an old age home, because when a granny, the granny's children now, they are going out, they're going to build their own houses and they go to university, they left grannies unattended. So therefore, a old age home is needed. So that we've got caregivers, nurses at the old age home taking care of all those grannies during the day. Mm. Yeah. And now we also had to get a shelter during a lockdown. We had a shelter, and that shelter, that's where I found Lethu. That's where I found Lethu. You see how good is Lethu, but he was now at the jungle. Now, you see what kind of program we came up with. Then Lethu is found in there, and he's a very brilliant young boy. I think I cannot tell you about Lethu. You all now know Lethu. Yeah, and then he's a celebrity of the day.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Joey, and thank you, Sethu, for everything that you have shared with us, including very cool musical performance too. Okay, Elsie, because I feel that I know you well enough that it's okay, I'm going to go off the script and ask you a question about time. Just like if we choose to, we can form a world around circles, or at least a lateral world, not a linearly integrated world. And I think about time. Time is something that humans created, and so we always seem to be in a rush, as a sense of that. And at the same time, we have a planet that is, among other things, by virtue of the fact that there's so many of us on the planet right now, and we still don't, a lot of us anyway, don't seem to understand what balance means, particularly with Mother Earth. So that's the time. Quick, we need solutions quickly, we need to change quickly, and that gets a little bit, I think, to not only reforming systems, but in some cases breaking down systems and starting again. And yet we're constantly told we're at a crisis point. And at the same time, there's nothing more important than building relationships, and that takes time. So I wonder if you could give insight, and drawing on whatever you wish, about how do we balance creating systems based on imagination and new ways of thinking that are really ancient ways anyway, but we're waking up to those, that involve building relationships and building trust, and then building together when we're constantly told to find solutions yesterday for the great problems of the world. And I'd love to get your insight there.
Yeah, I mean, time is the great limiter, and I think my approach has always been to balance hope and honesty, where you want to see the world change, you want to be around to see these great changes and these massive improvements, but the reality is a lot of us won't. And I think, especially having come from the background where most of the people that I'm in a movement with don't have long life expectancies. I've had a lot of friends pass in their 20s. We've come to accept, kind of as a group, as a collective, that the small moments matter, and failure is okay. Sometimes a lot of the success comes in just getting together and helping each other feel like we belonged, at least for a moment. Because earlier when I said I think belonging has a lot to do with purpose, purpose is what stays when the people you built a community with are no longer here. And when it comes to time, there's only so much we can do. And I don't think of that in a defeatist way. I just think that it reminds me of what April said, on the first day, that it just takes one person to care about you and to look at you and tell you you matter. That I think that's enough. Sometimes it's okay to just do enough to make sure that someone feels like for the time that they were here, at least for a little bit, they had purpose and they mattered. And sometimes that can be whatever your goal is, working to end poverty, trying to change policy issues. Because a lot of activism is failure. But with that failure also comes the movement that you made, and the friends that you made along the way, and the connections that you built. And for that time where you worked towards a goal, even if you didn't make it, you had purpose, and you had a sense of belonging. So I think ultimately time is just the space that we have to try to grow, and if we don't make it all the way, if we don't become a fully grown tree, that's okay. At least we sprouted.
Well, that was really beautiful and very powerful too. And I want to thank you for answering a question that I've had only half a century or more. Thank you. I'm going to open this, if everyone agrees, open this to questions, answers, comments, and then Aaron is around, hi Aaron, here, and what we're going to do when it's the right time, being held up in a card at the moment, that we're going to really blend right into the closing and reflection section. Yeah? Okay. But now on this panel, could I ask for comments, questions, answers, reflections? Oh, we're going to get you a mic, Tony. Thanks.
As a person with a disability, I was circled in nurses and doctors. We are trying to get out of that. We are trying to get in the community. Today, I was talking to my aide about belonging. You belong when people don't say, hey, remember the guy in the wheelchair? No, that's not the word. Remember Tony in the wheelchair because you included him too. And for us, it's very difficult because some of us can't speak, and some of us we do speak, but you have to listen. And another thing about us, what did you think? No, everybody looking at me, but nobody knows I'm a deacon of the church. Nobody knows I'm a pastor of the moment. And nobody knows I work for the state of New York. So really, a circle is what you make it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tony. Anyone else?
It's okay.
Oh, yeah. April? Great.
First, thank you guys, and I guess this question is directed towards Joey. I absolutely love your vision and everything that you're doing, and I always like to learn from others. What were some of the challenges that you had with implementing like those community-based supports, and how did you overcome those challenges to move forward to your next project?
Come again? Can I hear the question again?
What were some of your challenges while implementing like your granny programs and all of the different programs that kind of developed out of the one vision? And like, how did you overcome some of those challenges?
Can I go? Challenges were resources. Every time you have a vision and you think you want to pursue something, you need to influence somebody who's understanding and then who will see this as a need, just like you see it. We tend to not move because of we think everyone understands what we want to, where our destination. But with us, with the first program that we did, of peer education and all this, was this Ethiopia came in and fund us before the government would do. Before the government will fund the program, because that program was run by the youth. And Ethiopia, as said to be a poor country than ours, then decided to fund us. And I presented the program to the provincial government. then they buy in. And then they took all this program to themselves. I'm no more running the very same program. It's run by the government, the very same program that we started. It was called Ijozi Hlomile, which is around Johannesburg. It's Ijozi. Ijozi is like a goalie, like it's a golden city. So they then took over. Remember, it's like they have power. They took over. But what I did is that I then become forming part of the Johannesburg AIDS Council, the council itself, because HIV was like focused on HIV, the whole HIV in Johannesburg. Then they opened a council, the mayoral program. They opened, and then they wanted to take every program under their scope, and I formed part. That's when I was like socially connecting with others. Then I zoomed my way into that one, and I now sit in the Provincial AIDS Council. I'm a deputy secretary of the Provincial AIDS Council. In this Johannesburg AIDS Council, I'm heading youth. As old as I am now, I'm still heading the youth because they trust in me. The youth around Johannesburg, it's a province, it's a very big city. From region A to G, I'm the one who's heading the youth. Because from that program, since I was like in 2002, now the organization is 20 years old. Since then, the youth trust me. And because I'm sitting also advocating for grannies and all the program, children's sector in Johannesburg and the province itself. So I'm able to connect with the president, connect with whoever is next to me. Therefore, all the programs that I'm doing, they are funded, well funded, all of them. So the social connectedness, that's what you taught us, Angel.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you. Oh, yes, because you came a very long way to be here. One last question, and if we can ask it to be a little bit concise, that would be really great.
This is not a question, actually.
Thanks, Barbara.
It's more kind of a personal reflection, I would say. I think, being part of this movement and being on this journey, I see like it's been how beautiful it has been to just starting from conceptualizing and then having a kind of a shared space, learning from this space, and then finally imagining and reimagining and having a kind of a belief that's like I can make it happen and we can make it happen. So this is, yeah.
Thank you. 3 cheers to that. Thank you very much. I'm going to close this panel. I think we could go on for hours if it weren't for people have to get to their flights on time. I wanted to just to thank Danya and Joey and Elsie for so many insights, and everyone's tired, and yet you're coming up with incredibly deep ideas today. So thank you. I also wanted to say that it's just like what you said about the tree that really sticking in my mind about how the tree doesn't have to grow all the way to be a big tree. It's right. It's important that the tree exists, that the tree has strong roots, that the tree has roots from other trees to grow stronger together with, and it made me think about that mountain that we always seem to need a designated hero, and we always leave them on top of the mountain, not always taking the time to recognize everybody who played an equally important role in supporting and criticizing, sometimes being an obstacle to make that person decide, do I really want to accomplish this or not? So I just like to say, if you don't mind, I'm going to join the tree with the mountain and say that it's not about reaching the summit. It's not about reaching the the top of the mountain. It's about ascending together. Thank you.